There was an error, it's, should be 7,500 to Baders. There's just an extra zero in there. Down at the bottom, if we go back to resolutions number 2, Friday, May 25th, it's noon, not newt. And in the final sentence in that same item, City Commission approved the three-day variance. Whatever that is. We're missing, I missed one letter there, so. Then moving to reports. Item number 3, code enforcement, well, item number 2 first, building permit, it should be March 2018, not 17. Same for item 3, code enforcement report is March 2018, not 17.
Oh, well, that's you just.
Oh, two is right?
I think it's
Yes, you got to fix
Item, just I'll finish it, one more to go here. So on number 5, board review minutes should be March 20 through 22, not 2018, not May. So.
That was the Friday issue. The
Okay.
today issue was changed.
Fair enough. So better to cover twice than not cover it at all. So. With that, are there any other additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, let's take roll. Are we done?
Yes.
Pledge allegiance then, if everybody please rise. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and unborn.
Okay. First up, we'll entertain a motion on the minutes for the March 27th, 2018 regular meeting.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Moving down to communication. First up is receipt of a communication from the Arbor Day Foundation that the City of Elma has earned the recognition as 2017 Tree City USA.
Move to receive.
Support.
Motion to receive. Are there any comments or questions for staff on that one?
Is that correct, or should it be 28?
No, it's for.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So you're working the project. And I don't, anybody happen to know how many years in a row we've had this? It's been
A whole lot.
a whole lot.
Right out there.
Anyway, very, very nice award, and we're glad to have that, so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We received item number 2, receipt of a communication from the Elma Planning Commission on the recommendation to the City Commission on the draft medical marijuana facilities ordinance.
Before the motion, this way you can then request we set up a hearing. That'll be a separate action.
We will see that this week.
The next week is.
Next week was,
We'll
it'll
set
be
the
on the
hearing.
agenda to set the hearing.
Okay.
So we don't need to make a motion to get that on the agenda.
Okay.
We'll just have it.
Move to receive.
Support.
Motion and support. Any additional comments or questions on the item? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 3, receive a report from the Rebuild Elma's Right Dream Park Committee. I think Andy and Francis is going to
Where do you want us tonight?
If you just
Pull that up.
kind of the podium-ish thing there.
Podium-ish? We're
You
good
can
here?
pull it up in front of you if you want, or
I don't know if we need it.
Turn the mic a little bit, Andy, so that
I need a mic? You
the
need a mic?
No.
TV picture.
You're good now.
Doesn't matter now. It's
Doesn't
not
matter.
going anywhere.
It's just
I'm
gas.
like a joke. Andy Whitmire, 7199 North Loops Road, Elma.
Oh, I'm Jeff Somerville, 7765 First North Loops Road, Elma.
Amanda Huff, 570 Charles Avenue.
Okay, and I feel like we're thrown into this a little bit, so I apologize if it's out of context. Jeff, will you hand those to him, please? Oh, there you go. Okay.
I didn't know my role, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Our goal when we first began the Rebuilding Alma's Right Dream Park Committee was to rebuild and modernize Wright Park for the betterment of Alma's community and the inclusion of all peoples. We received approval in June 2017 to begin planning and were given full reins by the City Commission and Parks and Recreation Board of Alma. After careful consideration, we opted to utilize Sinclair Recreation out of Holland, Michigan, knowing that Mount Pleasant's rebuild project went so well and they utilized the same company. By mid-August, we had dreams in place and park renderings for us to tweak and modify to make this space exactly what our community needed. This total price tag came to $200,000. Our fundraising efforts started in September 2017, and we were fully funded with the $200,000 with pledges and cash in hand by March 2018. In fact, we were overfunded. So we went back to the dreaming board, and knowing that our park rebuild would be happening in July, we released those dates, July 19, 20, and 21. We wanted to be strategic in what we could accomplish in this time frame between now and then. Our park plans are nationally recognized by the parent company of Game Time, the equipment distributor that we've used. This company is called Playcore. And Playcore awarded us with recognition of being the first ever inclusive playground in the state of Michigan. And we wish to truly put the cherry on top of that award. Yes.
Instead, I pinged it.
So, with a new deadline that we opted to give ourselves based on timelines of grants that we've applied for, we have until May 31st, 2018 to fundraise up to $65,000. This would allow for the new playscape to be fully covered in poured-in-place rubber flooring that is not only safer than wood chips and easier to maintain, it also maximizes the inclusion and accessibility factor to the nth degree. What this means for the city, the budgeted dollars for wood chips at a cost of $10,900, this is per the Sinclair Recreation quote for this particular project, plus annual maintenance of added wood chips of $3,742 a year to keep that 11 to 12 inches depth up to par. That money would be set aside, as in these large maintenance dollars could be utilized elsewhere in the city's budget. And this figure is one that is sure to rise over time with the cost of wood chips. This poured-in-place flooring has a warranty of 10 years. Plus, we've been told that it will start to show general wear and tear 10 to 15 years down the road. At that point, there are patch kits available to replace the broken down flooring with new flooring. These kits cost anywhere between $120 to replace 5 square foot or $390 to replace up to 20 square foot. That means for 10 years, the city could save upwards of $37,000 to $40,000 in wood chips that could go towards other projects. The poured-in-place flooring that we've looked at costs up to $144,000 if we go with one particular vendor. We're currently in research mode trying to solidify which vendor to use. Part of that flooring is already a part of phase 1 that will be sure to be installed with a price tag of $45,000. There's a ton of numbers coming at you, sorry. Our fundraising efforts thus far have secured in hand $171,635. We have outstanding gifts pledged through foundation and donation letters, and we've received a total of $80,720. Those numbers are a little bit tweaked because gifts came in again even today. This means that we have raised total in 6 months, people, $252,000.
Amen.
With some extra.
Yeah.
Phase 1, like I mentioned before, costs $200,000. So we're currently over fundraised with the grant dollars. And if you're not familiar with the way grant dollars work, we use them or we lose them, and they are specific to our project. They can't be utilized elsewhere. So that $144,000 total price tag of the rubber flooring, minus all those numbers I just gave you, we're looking at $46,645 left to fundraise to secure that rubber flooring to go through the entire playscape. We also have added some other dreams to really knock this space out of the park by installing a paved walking path, a gaga ball pit to hit the tweens a little bit, and then fencing around the toddler area. It's a safety concern. As well as we know we need to do a donor recognition feature, perimeter timbers, and then concrete. These are needed for that space. The total cost of this brand new play area, originally thought to be $200K, if everything's installed, will come to just over $326,000. When we announced our dreaming on our Facebook page, we told everyone we're looking to secure that $65,000 by the end of May, and this amount would do the flooring and all those extra dreams. The dream team is asking, okay, The Dream Team is asking the city of Alma to consider contributing $10,000 of their annual Parks and Recreation budget, or whichever line item the wood chips come from, to go toward this poured-in-place rubber flooring for the whole park. We have been assured multiple times that the wood chips for phase 1 of our project would be coming from the city, so we eliminated this from our budget. It was also recommended to us from a representative of the city that we seek all rubber flooring for this playscape. Knowing that all funding for this project has been gifted from foundations, grant monies, business donations, and individual community members, we are inviting the city to get involved with funding for $10,000 to go toward the poured-in-place flooring, in lieu of that $10,000-ish that would have been going towards the wood chips of phase 1. Our goal is to make this space for everyone, and we truly believe in this last push of dreaming to do this rubber flooring. We believe this would be good not only for families with Friends with Wheels, but also for the maintenance by the city as a whole. This ask is coming from a place where we, as the Dream Team, recognize that a lot of local dollars have been exhausted, and we need to think outside the box. This project is something that we know we came to you and asked you to allow us to do. And we had no intention of being in this place right here where we're asking you to adjust your budget based on our needs, but the project became something really incredible that we're really proud of. And it's more than we ever hoped or imagined. And so this is merely an invitation to be a part of that project. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, so we entertain a motion to receive the report just given to us.
Support.
Motion support. Any comments or questions for the committee before they run away?
I'm not running. We're
Okay.
here.
I think they've done a fantastic job. I told Andy that before, but they've really done a fantastic job. And it'd be nice if we could figure out a way to help them out. Just a suggestion.
And when they talk about inclusive too, you're talking about, I think, wheelchair accessible, handicapped, disabled children, you're talking about autistic kids, you're talking about, this is phenomenal. All these kids with all these issues and everybody else gets to play at that park. And I got a grandson that's on that spectrum and he's gonna love it.
And I wanna, add too, like, this is gonna be beneficial for grandparents that are taking their
Well,
kids to
sure
the
it is,
park.
of course.
And, other, or parents with disabilities that also have walkers or wheelchairs. So it'll be great for the kids, but it'll be great for the parents who are taking them too. So.
Very good. Okay. Anything additional? Hearing none, all those in favor of the receipt?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We received the report. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Move down to C, hearings. We need to set a time and date for the purpose of reviewing the proposed fiscal 2019 annual city budget. You got them? Okay. So we've got a list. First one up is April 17th, budget review session at 5:30. April 24th, same thing at 5:30. May 1st, May 8th. I guess the April 17th is a special meeting. April 24th is a regular meeting. All of them are 5:30. May 1st is a special meeting. May 8th at 5:30 is a regular meeting, where we expect to adopt a resolution of the proposed millage rates at that time too, at our regular meeting that evening. May 15th, the review session special meeting, and May 23rd, adoption of the budget at our regular meeting. So I presume if we get things done ahead of time, some of the special meetings will be canceled, but better to have them and not need them than to need them and not be able to reschedule them, so. Entertain a motion?
Motion.
We have a motion? Support. Anybody have any problems or comments, questions with the dates? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried, the hearings are set, or the review sessions are set. Item number 2, we'd like to set a public hearing for May 8, 2018 at 6 o'clock to review the proposed fiscal year 2019 Alma City budget and related property tax millages. Millage rates, I guess.
So we'll set the hearing.
Okay, we have a motion support. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is carried, so we set the hearing. Moving on to the consent agenda. Once again, you can, Commissioner can approve or move to approve all these all at once, or you can remove any particular item for further discussion at your pleasure, I guess. First item is request for payment in the amount of $69,915.63 to Game Time and Sinclair Recreation for the second purchase of playground equipment for the Rebuilding Elma's Dream Park from the funds held by the city as a fiduciary for the Rebuild Elma's Right Dream Park Committee. So item 2 is request for payment in the amount of $11,931.16 to Gratiot County for building permits for the period of January through March of 2018. Item 3, we've got a request for payment in the amount of $1,894.08 to 21st Century Media for the March 2018 publications. Item 4, request for payment in the amount of $1,850 to ProQuest LLC. And this is for the annual renewal of the Ancestry Library database for genealogy searching at the Oma Library. Let's see, that's all of those items. So again, your pleasure to approve them all at once, to pull out any individual items for additional discussion. We have motion support for all. Anybody care to pull any items?
Not pull it, just a question. Do our charge for the permits equal what we pay?
I would presume it's a pass-through.
Pass-through.
It is?
We keep 15% for our zoning and some of our overhead, and the rest goes down to them.
Very good. Additional questions? Hearing none, we've got a motion for all of them, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Move on to request for purchase. The first item up is request for purchase in the amount of $7,500 to Bader and Sons for 3 John Deere tractors with mowing decks. And if you all recall, if you've been through this with us before, we trade in three mowers every year. So they're $18,000 worth of mowers. They give us 10.8 to do it, and we paid them $7.5. So, any motion to approve is recommended by staff.
So move.
Support. Okay. Any questions or comments on the program?
We put on over 300 hours of operating hours every year on each of these tractors, so it's like 10 years of residential use, well over 10 years of use. So it is a good deal for us.
So to use it for 2 summers, it would be 20 years presumably of use. Well, I had John Deere was probably 40 years old, so I don't know if we've ever done all the math on it, but it's gonna last forever.
But not 300 hours a
But
year.
probably not yet peak efficiency yet. I'm assuming my yard hasn't been mowed at peak efficiency, so. Okay, any additional comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item number 2, request for purchase in the amount of $2,240 to Country Rocks of Elma for hardwood mulch for the city parks, downtown, and library landscaping. We have a motion to approve. We have a motion and support. Anybody have comments or questions? Question came to me. Does this bid include mulch that we were planning on putting in the playscape, the new playscape, or
No.
no? So that's going to
This
be
is separate mulch. The whole stuff goes underneath playscapes. It's called 5R. It's chipped differently, so there's no rough edges. This is actual mulch that you would not be able to use underneath a play equipment.
Okay.
You don't want to be rolling around.
No, gosh, no.
This is the splinter stuff. then?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why it's much cheaper.
Rubbery and-
It's much cheaper.
I believe there were other bids, weren't there? I'd go back to that. Okay, he's got one other bid, it looks like.
$24.95 for $24.95 on the other.
So $24.95 for the other bid, that makes sense. Again, I believe we had a motion and support, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion is carried. Item number 3, request for purchase in the amount of $9,000 to Maverick Environmental Equipment of Elma for 1-month rental of a screener for the yard waste site for the month of June 2018. And the note from staff indicates that prices for 1 month, if the screening can be accomplished in less time, basically 2 weeks, the cost of rental would drop to $6,000. So we potentially could save $3,000, I guess if all goes well.
We were working hard. It's a much larger screen than we've had. The existing one is tired and old and has some problems. And so we do it once a year. This is all the composting that we've been gathering for the last year. And we'll process everything that we've got right now through this one screener in a short period of time.
So do we currently own a screener then?
We own a screener, but it's
It's
getting
kind of
inadequate.
junk, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's a $65,000 new screener, so I'd rather pay a rental, $6,000 a year rental, if that's a 10-year payout.
steps.
Is that those big piles to the west of Bridge
North.
Street? North of Washington, but to the west of Bridge Street, that run
Yes.
north and south.
Yes.
And once the dirt is screened, then it's available for use by the city staff as well as by residents, is that
Correct.
true? Okay. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor? Opposed, same sign, the motion is carried. Move on to recommendations on bids. We have a receipt of bids for the 2017 CIP street reconstruction project of Ely and Euclid. The following bids were received on April 4, 2018. Looks like we got 7 of them, ranging from $560,671 as the low end, or $881,439 at the high end. So a wide range there. Staff has recommended McGurk Sand and Gravel of Mount Pleasant as the low bidder, and that is the recommendation. We accept their bid. Okay?
Yes.
So we have a recommendation to staff.
Move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Anybody have comments or questions? Timeframes on this?
David, starting in early May and finishing likely in the middle of July.
Big
About a
project.
2.5 month project.
Okay, it's a big project, gonna inconvenience some people, but be well
Yeah.
worth it when it's done.
Yep, that and along with Lincoln Avenue, those are both gonna be done this summer, so Ely and Lincoln will have prospective detour routes.
Okay. All right, any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Looks like we've awarded the contract. Resolutions, first one is consideration of a resolution proclaiming April 27th, 2018 as Arbor Day in the city of Alma. Support. Motion and support. All those in favor, or any comments or questions? None, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have Arbor Day. Item 2, consideration of a resolution approving the Alma Highland Festival Committee's request to operate their entertainment tent from 6:30 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Friday, May 25th, noon to 1 a.m. on Saturday, May 26th, and 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday, May 27th, 2018. Pursuant to ordinance number 695, which allows the city commission to approve with a 3-day variance to the noise ordinance. Recommendations to approve? Motion support, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Looks like we carried another motion. Agreements, reports, commission may receive the following reports by one resolution, or commission may remove any items within this section for individual discussion and vote again. And again, we have the police department report, the building permits report, code enforcement, investment report, board of review minutes, and planning commission minutes. So, what is your pleasure?
To receive.
Support.
Motion to support. Anybody care to remove anything or have comments? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. New business, presentation of the fiscal year 2019 annual city budget. Matt and Alan, Eric Lewis, taking over here.
Get around this way, like these.
Get this thing done here. While this warms up, as we get ready to start, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and do this. I think I stated, Roxanne, make sure you have all time. It's gonna get brighter as we go. We might get there. One of the goals here this year, as we're looking at the budget, with a whole bunch of new things going on and different people involved, is it obviously looks a little bit different. Looks a little bit different, it's a little bit slimmer. It's on a diet, so to speak, of the information that was there. It's been very, very helpful from staff. I'm very pleased to see how staff jumped all over this and getting their pieces of the budget together and how everybody worked together on this. So I look forward to this. It's been one of those things when you don't do a lot of this. This is the first time around, especially when you're talking numbers like this. So wait till the end. We'll have some deal with you guys with some questions we can get there. Okay? Just what we should do is that our budget is intended to present in financial terms the overall plan for providing municipal services for the upcoming year. This is what we're doing. Our desire as a staff is to provide a higher level and quality of services to ensure the progress and development And as I stated, each department had a really legitimate voice in the development of this document. Meetings for the last few months on a daily basis of everyone going through it. Presenting Cynthia with her ideas, went through there. It was actually a very good process, a very civil process that got us to this point. It's our intent to present a budget that promotes accountability, increases engagement, and assists us on the path to success. For a lot of us that are new in different positions here within the city, this is a really good opportunity for us to take a look at all of this and decide what our role is going to be going forward and how we can make this work for the citizens here in Alma. One thing you're going to start to see is our concept of triple. We're going to start to see this around the city, around a lot of different things that we're putting together here. Because the city of Alma, this came directly from those of you who don't know, this directly came from our employee development team of the folks that we've gathered together as employees to try and set some goals for the city. And the City of Alma employees are committed to serving our community by providing a transparent, team-centered approach, and our work is guided by our core values. And we call that triple, which is something we're going to start to emphasize here within the city. We're talking about is teamwork, that we'll all work together to try and make these things happen. Respect for not only each other, but respect for the citizens of the community. Having integrity in everything we do. Having pride in being an employee here at the City of Alma. Learning all the time, learning every opportunity that we get to learn and see where we're going, and then really striving to be excellent and have excellence in our job. Our goals that we've set together for fiscal year 2019. First of all, if we want to step back till December, late December of 2018, I decided to look at our goal setting session and our goal process a little bit differently than we had done in the past. I sent out a packet, for those of you who don't know, I sent out a packet to all of the commissioners, all supervisory personnel that work here in the city. Part of that packet was, it was a lengthy one, and I appreciate that over 85% of everyone got it back to me to look at what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what are our opportunities, what are your goals for the city, what do you think? I compiled all of that information, and in January, late January, we all got together, that group, over 30 people got together. And we spent 2 hours that night just discussing all of those items that we had come up with. The process went on, again, unfortunately at the end of the night I said, we're going to do this for 2 hours, that's all, we're going to move on from there. At the end of 2 hours we had kind of established some of these things, but then we had to get back and I gave them more homework, where I sent them more, and again I appreciate everybody, to take the information we had discussed that night and start to whittle that down, get it down to some things. We're going to end up in the end with 2 really main goals we're going to focus on, but what we came up with were 4 different themed areas that continually kept coming up. The first one being development of an employee engagement policy or a program for employee development. The second one was development of community engagement communications plan. The third one had to do with continuing development within the city and infrastructure. And the fourth one was, of course, finance. After that meeting, when I got all the feedback then, staff at that point in time, when we sat down, we mapped all this out. We talked about all of these things. What became very apparent to staff in these discussions was, if we don't do these 2, 3 and 4, we'll never get there. And so we decided to shift our focus a little bit. In my interview, when Mr. Mapes asked me, what's the next 5 years that you need to look at in any small town, and especially like Alma, I know you're supposed to say the finances, and we're going to talk about those here in just a minute. If I had that complete answer, I wouldn't be standing here, because I'd be consulting for other people who also are in the same boat of trying to manage this rocky road of finances for municipal government right now. So we're not blowing that part off, but we're going to make a commitment during this year, because either by design or by default, how the city operates internally will be how the city operates externally. And Mr. Bickle, I think I stole that from you, quite frankly, in one of your, and I'm not trying to get points with you for that. It just means so much. How we operate internally definitely moves out to how we're looked at and perceived externally. So we've been working really hard, starting things like the employee development team, meeting on Monday mornings, meeting on Thursdays, not just for agenda. Different departments are having more and more meetings together of trying to just open that communication. So in this next year, one of our main 2 goals is going to be to actually develop an employee engagement program and policy that lays out how we're going to do that. We owe it to our supervisors and our people in those positions to train them as supervisors. We've put some people in positions that we've made it kind of impossible, and we're not giving them that proper training to get there. So that'll be part of that. That we're getting done. That will incorporate everybody from all levels of our organization. And the second one, a city where staff and citizens can work together on a consistent basis is really ripe for growth and prosperity. That's mine. I didn't steal that from you. Right? But I believe in that. I think the development of a community engagement communications plan is essential. I know when I first started, one of the things that I would talk about is communication, and you get the eye roll. I know communication's always a problem. It is. That's why we keep working on it all the time, because communication is always a problem. What are we going to do next? How are we going to communicate? So developing a way for us to be able to engage with the community. Frankly, I know why probably everybody's here tonight. You weren't here to come to my presentation. Okay? But seeing more bodies, coming to meetings, being more actively involved, how do we get the information out to you that's meaningful? We think we do a really good job of getting it out until nobody shows up at a meeting, and then we're discussing, why doesn't anybody know there's a meeting tonight? They've been the same night for years. Okay? So our role in this next year is to develop a community engagement communications plan that will truly allow you to understand what's going on in the city and where your place is in that. And I think we've got some pretty interesting things that will be coming up throughout the year in this. So that's how we got those. I'm going to let Cynthia, who is the controller and has really taken a great, I don't want to say lead because she didn't have any choice but to lead this, because she's in finance, but has really taken on the role of being the person to really try and bring us together on, as we formulate this budget and do some things. So she's going to talk about, she's going to talk a little bit about the changes and what you've seen different in this budget. I will tell you, folks that don't know, the budget itself that we're presenting tonight is in a, sorry here. It's went from about 278 pages down to, I don't know, there's 78 or so in there. Not because what was in there before wasn't pertinent. Cynthia will tell you, we've made this is what the state requires. We're getting back to our basics of what we need to do and put in here. So, I'll let her run.
When you're talking about the reclassifications of functions from prior years, our budget was always delineated by economic development, public safety, those kinds of things. The state of Michigan implemented a new revised chart of accounts that must be implemented by the end of the year, and it changed fairly drastically a number of the ways that we classify functions.
Louder, Cynthia? Louder?
Okay. I'll read down the functions that are now included in your budget book. There's legislative, which is the city commission, chief executive function, which is the city manager, financial and tax administration, city clerk, treasurer, and assessor, general government function, which is elections, municipal building and grounds, and the state street plaza. And I'm including both governmental and enterprise funds in this. Public safety function includes police, fire protection, and inspection services. Public works function, which is our biggest group, includes downtown maintenance, sidewalks, the street opening permit program, roads, streets, and bridges, street lighting, cemetery, airport, wastewater, water distribution, refuse collection, and transit. And then we have community and economic development function, including zoning and economic development, recreation and culture function, which includes parks, library, and then debt service. There's a couple other changes that we've made as we presented the budget. Internal service charges always used to be included halfway down the group of categories. They've been moved up to personnel, basically because they basically are personnel. Although they're grouped in a separate place, it's wages and fringes and safety equipment and the cost of people. And then also, city manager, clerk, and treasurer have historically been split among several different categories. They are now defined in one sole place by their prevailing job description.
And what we decided really in there was, in my role as a city manager, part of my job is to be involved in everything and all of those things as opposed to splitting off wages, so there's a better understanding right there.
Let me say one other thing. I'm probably the only one in the world that cares about this. But the functions that we have reclassified to are, besides being prescribed by the state of Michigan, are also used to file an annual report with the state. And they've recently launched a website so that every local unit in the state of Michigan can be compared get on and compare your city to many other places. And they will be apples to apples. Sorry.
So, okay, chime in anytime you want. In the overview that we're looking at, we're talking about the different things as we go through this. We're talking about the fund types, and in that, in your budget, and folks, the budget will be, it's on our website that you will be able to get to it, and everything will be in there. But the fund types, the governmental and the enterprise, and then the functions that Cynthia went through: legislative, chief executive, general government, public safety, public works, community and economic development, recreation and culture, and the debt service. Expenditure categories are now personnel, materials and supplies, services and charges, capital outlay and debt. And then the revenue sources are taxes, special assessments, licenses and permits, grants, charges for services, fines and forfeits, investment income, rents, and then that category, that general category of other. Some of those other things that may come in as revenue. So just to give you a little bit on that. This is kind of small, but I think it's a real interesting way. We've used this back in September. Something did to tie in how our actual fund structure and where they tie together with each other. She can explain that a little bit.
The first column is our general fund, and then the second column are funds that are restricted, so our special revenue funds are in there, and our utilities. The last column are joint ventures, they don't apply a lot. But for example, in our general fund, we make a contribution for fire protection. And if you follow that color across to the third row, we make that contribution to the Rural Urban Fire Board. And that goes so on. We make a contribution to the Alma Public Library. That is one of our component units in column B with restricted funding. The same with the Gratiot Community Airport. We are part of the joint venture that runs the airport, and we and the county mainly make contributions.
This is just the overview. Citywide revenue by source. It's kind of hard to read in there, but you get there. And then actually, we have both by source revenue and by the expense function that breaks it down. I don't think there's, I can move a little bit closer. I'm getting in the way here, but you're looking at definitely, when you talk about our revenue here, the number $2,442,000 comes from our tax base. I can't tell my numbers. Now that's the taxes. Looking at grants, is where we get federal grants. Here in the bigger area is the taxes, that's just charges for service. So this is all available in your book. It breaks it down a little bit by where is the money coming in, and this is where we're spending it, down here in this area, broken down by all of those functions that we went through before, I can tell you. On your presentation, it's a small one. In your book, it's actually the large full. You got to look at where those numbers are.
That is a pictorial view of the both governmental and enterprise funds. The first pages. This one is governmental expenditures only, based on category, which Matt read through earlier about personnel, materials and supplies, etc. This one, if you can see that.
You have a handout too, folks. You do up front. I know that.
The dollar amounts are listed on the grant, but down by the legend, the percentages, each one of those pieces makes up of the total. So like personnel is 46% of our general governmental expenditures. So that includes general fund, our street fund. We have 3 street funds. Then materials and supplies is 4%, services and charges are 26%, capital outlay is 24%.
In this area here, when you look at the personnel, obviously it's over half, almost nearly half, excuse me. Those are the areas that we've had some adjustments over the last year. It's also the areas I told you in September that I think we are at a point that we can't do those and still provide service anymore, okay? And so that's where some of our focus came to within this budget process is how do we still provide the service that you folks are wanting us to provide, knowing that we have less of these folks than we used to, substantially less than we used to. And so how do we make this work? And that's been our challenge as far as starting to looking at this big picture right here as to where we're at.
In the general fund highlights, revenues and expenditures are both projected at 3.9 million. We did do a balanced budget. State revenue sharing includes 57,000 sent to the Alma through the local community stabilization authority. This was just created by the Michigan legislature. Police department is an interesting one to look at. We've restructured to 13 police officers, but if you, there is a legacy cost that the city of Alma is required to pay to MERS for one particular closed group, of POM, COM, senior officer group. In our budget for 2019, that cost alone is $179,000. And it has been that way so that's off the top.
For those who don't know, MERS is the retirement program.
We've done a few change-ups in how we acquire some vehicles. We're gonna move the police vehicles back to the police department. And then they will maintain and fuel and insure the vehicles. And we've had a habit of sticking money different places, just in case. And we seriously went through the whole budget and looked for those places and took them out with the idea that instead of sticking money places and then leaving it out of our money to spend, we would use budget amendments to review overages that happen along during the year, to amend the budget as we need.
And I think this is an area that, as we look at it's changing up, this is part of the philosophy change of what we're looking at. If we're going to get a handle on exactly where these numbers are, I understand building contingency funds, we build those in, but we have something that is already in place that we need to make some decisions on as we go forward, and that's the general fund balance. There's been a lot of discussion about the general fund balance over the last couple of years. Interpretation of where you want that balance, what this is referring to is the years of accumulated excess revenue over our expenditures. It's that money that's come in over what we spent out. Used for things like, could be used for things like planned large capital projects, startup costs for new service, or that insurance for the unforeseen catastrophic events that happen. What we looked at when we talked about taking that slack in those areas of building some contingencies in each individual department, one of the issues becomes, if you're going to be really open and transparent about it, is if you built that slack, nothing happened, that money's still there, but that money doesn't end up in the budget, it's still gone. Tracking back of where to go. So we want to eliminate some of those things of trying to determine where did that go, how did we spend it, so we can plan a little bit better. The question that's going to have to come before this commission, and we've had some of these discussions in work sessions prior, is about the general fund balance. Currently, we are sitting at $3,258,406 in our general fund balance. Okay? Question always comes, is that healthy? That is the question that we're going to have to determine. What do we want for health? How much is enough? How do we measure it? Do we measure it in percentage of our revenue? Do we measure it in percentage of our expenditures? We've talked a little bit about days of operation, and that translates to 279 days of operation that the city would be able to function for that catastrophic event. The decision that I say is going to be made and that we're going to have to discuss in times is, what are we going to use this for? Our idea is to say when, because we've taken the slack out of these things, when we have those emergencies and we have to do those budget amendments, which will happen, that we're going to have to come to you as a board to say, here's a budget amendment, and we have to justify why we're asking you. As opposed to, and the budget amendment process, I might jump ahead just a little bit, the Michigan Uniform Budget Manual states that the legislative body must amend the budget as soon as the deviation is known. We intend to bring these items to you then on a very timely manner. We've seen Director Williams use them a couple times because he's had grant money that's come back in and we've been able to do that. The idea is if we have that massive break or something that causes us these issues and we have that amount, we have to fix that. We can then come back to you with those figures. This is over and above, but we keep in mind, we have not kept that somewhere else inside the budget just in case it happens. So we're gonna ask you to really take a look at this process and see, first of all, where do you want that number? What does that 279 days really mean? We've asked for some guidance on those things and they'll say, well, your fund balance needs to be from 10% to 70%. 10% of the money in a very wealthy community is a lot different than 10% of the money here. 10%. Detroit is a lot different of their budget than it would be for us and what's usable. So we have some work to do through this budget process. I would like to think at the end of this budget process, we will have answered some of these questions that we need to answer so that there's really good guidance through policy and things that how can we utilize and how do we want to set this budgeted amount as a commission and as a staff. Okay.
There are a number of ways that we could come up with that money to fund those amendments too. You could find new revenue. You can review expenditures that are out there already and maybe find something you don't need to buy this year in a different expenditure and transfer. Or you can use fund balance.
Good point, because it doesn't mean that everything that happens, we're gonna run to you automatically for this money. The first thing is going to be to the department heads. You need to look within your budget. You need to look within yours first. One of the things we wanna do is have quarterly budget review meetings so that we are all on the same page talking about budget. If I look like I'm gonna have money left in my department, for whatever reason, as opposed to just spend it, because it's there, to protect yourself, we wanna be able to have these meetings that say, I'm hurting right here because I have a valid reason for wanting to come back and amend the budget. Those will be interesting talks. So far, the talks that Cynthia's had with department heads, that we've had as sitting as a group, have been very good because there's been no mine versus yours. I have a feeling as we go through this process, when you look at the budget, we're gonna have more discussion that may bring the department's head into that game to have to say, and you have to justify what's your line item then and where we're going. I know as we go down to looking at some of these things, if we're gonna use the fund balance to do some of this, or you're going to ask us first, as you should, have you looked at the budget to see if there's a place for that? Those discussions will have to occur internally to begin with, before we got there. These are the street funds that she had touched on earlier to give you an idea, and both Val, jump in wherever you want on these two, but make sure that we're getting that.
The street funds that we have presented here are mostly capital things. The Lincoln Street is, we're going to do with STP funds from MDOT. So there is a local funding portion and a federal funding portion.
Could you define STP for everybody, please?
Yes.
What did we get with
That
that?
is state transportation.
State transportation.
Surface treatment.
Okay, surface treatment.
Thank you.
The 80,000 in local streets we're gonna use for seal coating to maintain our streets last, hopefully they will last a little longer. And then our voted street millage, which we do every year. Plan on doing Hannah and Pleasant from this year, and we need to finish Ely and Euclid. Can you speak to anything else about that?
Can
you
you let me go when I've got all capital projects? I'll defer for a minute.
Sure. Okay, and the enterprise funds, they are presented by fund in the book that you received. Michigan law does not actually require you to adopt a budget for enterprise funds. We do it as a management tool. But that doesn't mean that those funds are unregulated for the city of Elma, because you as a board must always approve the rates for each one of those funds. And of course, you always see claims and they are presented. So if you have.
Define enterprise funds. Define what that is.
Enterprise funds are the funds that look more like a business. So our State Street Plaza, transit.
Oh, okay.
So they're funded by user charges, not our tax.
Okay, thank you. Didn't know about that.
Yeah, the big clear, they're not funded through the general.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
Alan discussed the capital improvement plan. He made some changes on this form that I think is best for him to explain as to some of the changes, because you're seeing this in a different form than has been in the past.
I know it's kind of small up there, but you'll see in your packet. Basically, we've spent the last couple of years working very diligently with our water treatment plant and with conjunction with the city of St. Louis, and we've revamped that plant. We've got some new water supply, we've got new transmission lines, and all of that stuff is working very well. We took the opportunity to make some good upgrades in that system. During that time, it took all of our focus, so now we get a little bit of catch up on some other things. The next thing we looked at this year was we sat down with David Ringel, engineering, and then Darren Johnson, our wastewater treatment superintendent. We said, where are we now and where do we want to be? The plant by itself is in pretty good shape, but we do know that there's some deficiencies in our lift stations. Basically, with your sewers is that your stuff that comes out of your house drains into a low spot and then is pumped up with some pumps into another system and eventually gets back to the water treatment plant. But there are some weak spots in that system. And so we put in here $165,000 of improvements to make sure that we're doing everything we can proactively to keep the stuff in the systems and not backing up into your basements. You know, that's a big deal. So that is one of our high priorities. $165,000, which we think is money well spent to make sure that we are bringing our lift stations up into the level of, if we had to build a new one, they would be compliant with that. It's a liability looking at that. The next big thing is back as Cynthia mentioned, is on the streets. Because we were busy, we postponed a couple of projects. And you saw that tonight the board was the Ely and Euclid streets. And then those were slated to be done in fiscal year 2017. We delayed those because of our treatment plant. We'll do those, we're starting this summer. And then a second round is going to be the streets that she had there, which was Hannah and Pleasant. And those are actually toward this fiscal year, so we'll get all that stuff done. And then the Lincoln Street is another large project. We get federal funds. It's $375,000 of federal funds we get for that. And it's a major thing. That'll be from Marshall all the way down to Van Buren. And so those are very large street projects, and so we got $3 million of that in those street projects. And when you see street projects, we're also going back, we have an aging infrastructure. We know that we have some sewers in there from the 1940s, 1920s. When we do a street, we look at several things. We look at the condition of the street, we look at the condition of the stuff that's underground, and we pick the streets that have the biggest impact to fix the biggest problems or future problems. And so when we do street projects, we're going to be doing replace the water lines, the sewers, the storm sewer mains, and the sanitary mains. And so when you look at it, we've got $1 million in sewer systems replacing, we got $1 million in water systems replacing, we got a couple $1 million of streets replacing. So that is our street project. It's a lot of money to replace this, but we want to make sure that we do a good job. We don't want to go back there and just do the top of it and then come back in 6 months and rip up the street again because of another problem. We're going to fix everything we've got. And a couple of streets we do have some sidewalk projects this year. So we did, I grouped these, you see there, down there at the bottom, I grouped them together as a project, is that when you do a street, there are the street portion, the water portion, the sewer portion, and the sidewalk portion. So it's all lumped together. Because we manage it as one project. And so we collect all the costs at one spot. And we have a few just little other miscellaneous stuff, but it's, you know, basically it's the wastewater and the streets.
A good look on this is you do get to see projects as a whole, all the way across the line. You can see where the money's coming from, you can see what's allotted, everything there, so you get that big picture of project-based as opposed to all the CIPs in each other category. So it's a very good overall picture as you look at the different projects that are coming, and hopefully it helps. It cleared things up for me just seeing it like this.
And there's a short sheet inside the book too that describes those. It's just a couple sentences, but it gives you a good idea. And again, tells you across the top up there, you can't see, that's where all the funds come. The money is coming from the funds. And the good thing is that first revenue, there's no revenue funds coming out. That there are stuff, there's $1 million, or actually $1.3 million total coming out of the Bowden Street millage for all the street projects.
I know this is a lot different, and I think that as you look at this, and one of the discussions that we've had, I want to make sure we're not painting the wrong picture for folks. Because if you were to classify and say to me, well, how are we doing? And I would assume that's the question that a lot of people have. How are we doing? this is the phrase that keeps coming up. I think we're holding our own. By no means are we flush, and by no means are we able to do and take on more. One of our main goals right now is the maintenance of our current assets is our top priority. And I discussed this back in September, October, and as I've been here long enough getting some idea, we're really not in a position to take on any assets of any significance right now until we know we can handle what we have. We have, as Alan referred to, an aging infrastructure under the city. And it's not the thing that everybody, it's not really the fun thing that everybody wants to talk about and look at until it affects you personally as things are coming back up in your home. And so our planning process as we move on is really to try to stick to this idea that we really don't have that extra to do certain things. There's no extra here. We budgeted at 3.9 to come back at 3.9 for the general fund. I mean, it's, and again, this is a snapshot of what we're looking at and projecting. Budget awards are one thing. In the end, how you've performed against that budget needs to be the other. That's going to be our biggest task, is to make sure of where we are and staying on task with this. We're really attempting to spend our limited dollars in the best way that's possible for this community. I pledge to you folks that we will do everything we can to make good decisions all along the way with your money and where it's coming from. The direction for staff this year, starting with this process, is to examine all of our processes, procedures, and practices. When they attacked the internal service fee fund, of looking at the different ways we can move those things around to see where we can become more efficient and how we can get better in what we're doing. We're looking for those efficiencies and inefficiencies of operation before we talk about reducing service. Before we tell you no, we can't do something, we need to evaluate ourselves, how we're doing it, and make sure if there is a way we can do it. And prioritize. I see a big part of your role as helping us to prioritize the items and prioritize the things within the city. We've gone through an awful lot over the last couple of years of talking park bathrooms. We've heard you. That is a huge priority as we move forward. But you have to understand that every time we have a cost for something in that category, if we don't have it, it's got to come from somewhere else. And so the question becomes, where would you like us to nibble from? That's what we have to really look at to see, to make sure that this thing works. We're walking a fine line of providing the best available service that we can at the most reasonable cost. Okay. And I think I want to go back to this, because this is where we are now. This is what we're going to do for you and what we're going to commit to everybody. The City of Allen employees are committed to serving our community by providing a transparent, team-centered approach to what we're doing, and our work is guided by those core values: teamwork, respect, integrity, pride, learning, and excellence. Those came from the employees here. Not from me, not from any department heads, they came from the employees. So that's our commitment to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Open up for questions and comments this time. Anybody?
Understanding we know we have a number of different sessions still to go. We're not done.
I guess one thing comes to mind. I'd like to commend you, Matt, and the entire team at the City Hall and all the various departments and everything. I know a lot of work went into this from the bottom up. It's a different way of doing things. And I know everybody put a lot of work into it, but it also gives us the ability to give the opportunity for the different various departments and entities within the city to be accountable for their own budgets, which I think we've kind of lacked in some past years. So I think this is a new, fresh way to do things. I really like it. I appreciate all the work you went into to put this together. And while you went from, when you, the 270 pages we used to get down to 30 will concern me, but I assume that Cynthia has 230 pages of board papers in her office that.
Keep it